Welcome back everyone, another gaming console video today, and we're going to be talking about the successor to the PlayStation 3 successor, which is the PlayStation 3 Slim, which that specific successor was the PlayStation 3 Super Slim, which some of you guys might not even know about, and me personally, I didn't even know about until like a year and a half ago, and in 2018 I purchased basically all PS3s, and I only got to review one of them because I was too busy doing iOS reviews the rest of the year. So now we get to finally talk about the PlayStation 3 Super Slim and see how it holds up in 2020. Now the specific one I have is the base model. I think there were two, the base model and then the 500 gig model. Maybe they're all the same, I really don't know. But this console came out back in 2012, so it's actually turning 8 years old this year, which is pretty crazy. A couple years after this, Sony eventually released the PlayStation 4, and that feels like that was forever ago, which seems so weird. And this console was actually kind of finished off and ended in 2017, so it kind of got a pretty decent sized run, and going from the original PlayStation 3 to this one, there are some major changes in the way they look, but as I've always said before, I would almost always recommend everyone who's watching to pick up the original PlayStation 3, then pick up a Super Slim or Slim, and that mostly has to do with backwards compatibility. No other PlayStation 3 console has any type of backwards compatibility besides the original one. The original PlayStation 3 can do backwards compatibility with PlayStation 2 and PlayStation 1 games, and if you think about it, that is a humongous variety of games you can pick. I mean, there's like trillions of games you can play, and you don't have to install emulators, you don't have to mod them or anything. Now there are some PlayStation games you can get from the PlayStation Store from within the PlayStation 3 obviously network, but unfortunately they're not all the games. There's a couple of them, but even then they're not like the classics. You have some Crash Bandicoots, you have some like Spyro the Dragons, I'm sure, but if you want the whole entire library, the original PlayStation 3 is where it's at. Now looking on this specific console, it's funny, I purchased this one back in 2018 like I said. I think I spent maybe like $60 on it at the time. I think maybe a little bit cheaper. There was a specific issue with this one, but I fixed it, and I honestly don't even know what the issue was anymore because it was such a modest, it was like such a minuscule fix, but I was still able to fix it, and I know nothing about gaming consoles, so if I can fix it, I'm sure anybody else could have. Now one thing for sure from owning every single PlayStation 3 so far, that this is a cheaper build quality than the original PlayStation 3 and even the PlayStation 3 Slim, which was the previous one before this one. And with the PS3 Slim, there were some really cool aspects about it. I think it was a downgrade, like I said, from the original PlayStation 3, but at least that one still felt kind of decent, it felt like a pretty good console overall. And this console just doesn't feel like a really good console. It doesn't feel that premium, and I think they took up and gave up some premiumness in order to kind of fit it in a slimmer body, which I think they could have had both, but it is what it is. The main thing about this PlayStation 3 Super Slim is that on the top you have like a sliding mechanism in order to get the disc out, and I don't know why they went this route. I mean, if you look at even like the PlayStation 2, ever since then they actually had a gaming console you had to insert the disc in and insert it out, and it optically came in and came out, so pushed it out and it pushed it in, which was really cool, and it made the console feel that much better. But when you have a console like this, it's so reminiscent of the original PlayStation 1 where you have to click the button and get the game out, and then you have to pop it in, pop it out in order to get it out. It seems kind of like that, and I think with the sliding thing, it's not an end all be all. Obviously once you put the console away, then you're pretty much set, but that is one thing to kind of keep in mind, is that when you're putting the disc in and putting the disc out, it just doesn't feel right. It just feels very cheap, and even though you're probably only going to touch it one time to put the game and touch it out, it's still one thing you're going to constantly kind of mess with it here and there. It was just one thing that really bothered me. So that was with the top specifically, but I do like the rigid design, and I like how the PS3 logo is right there, just like how on the PS3 Slim and the PS3, the original logo, they all have the logo on the front, which is really nice. Now on the front of the PlayStation 3, we have two USB ports, which is really nice to have right there because, if you're going to charge your controllers or whatever, you have easy access, so you can plug in a hard drive or whatever you want to, or even an SSD. I think maybe these things support SSDs, and it's a really cool thing that you have the ability of doing on this type of PlayStation 3. So if you have, digital games that you downloaded, you can easily plug in something from the front and just have all your games saved up on the hard drive and be set. You don't have to worry about constantly plugging things in and plugging things out. And there are several USB ports on this thing, which really make it that much better of a console. So for sure, the two USB ports are something that I really do like, and they've actually held up quite well in 2020 for sure. And when I said about the USB ports, I totally lied because those are the only two USB ports that we have on this console. Now looking on the back, you can see that we have the Ethernet port, which is interesting. Still, most consoles still have that, and hopefully they don't go anywhere because that's always faster than having to connect to Wi-Fi every single time, but it's still not that big of a deal. You have the HDMI port, which is really, really awesome. On some newer consoles, we have more than one HDMI port, so that's kind of a bigger change that we've seen from this specific console. But other than that, still having the HDMI port is really, really awesome. You have this other cable, which I don't really know what it is, and then you have the AC adapter, which is really cool. And it's funny because this is the same type of AC adapter that's compatible with a lot of other consoles, including the PlayStation 4, at least the original one that I have. So if you want, you can connect that one onto this one, PS3 Super Slim, which is really cool. And in terms of the outside, that really pretty much covers it. Like I said, it's not like a crazy cool console. It didn't really bring anything too crazy, but it is kind of in that little bit of like a weird playground in a way. It's not super premium feeling, but it's kind of slim. And if you look at the original PS3 and look at this one, there were some really good changes that I think happened with this PS3 Super Slim. They shrunk it down quite a bit. Apparently, one of the bigger changes with this was they wanted to make it sound less loud. So they remanufactured a lot of different things within this to make the fans not move up all the time and all loud. But I still heard a lot of complaints about this in terms of the fan noise. And I think at the end of it, this was kind of a strange console to push at the time, even though Microsoft and a lot of other consoles were pushing some newer updates to their consoles at this time too. I just think with this specifically, the PS3 was already a really good console, the PS3 Slim was really good, and to make another console where the main selling point was just to shrink it down even more, I don't know, it just kind of was a hard press in my opinion. They could have taken a different approach, but Microsoft was doing the same exact thing with the Xbox 360S and eventually with the other consoles that they pushed out, which I also have that I have to make videos on. I think those ones, they were trying to do a lot of weird things. They were trying to shrink it down, but eventually the market said they don't want like a super slim console. They want a console that, has everything built into it, that has a lot going for it. And even though this console was, at the time supposed to be the one fitting in and was a slim one, I think there were still a lot of people who were complaining about it, saying things that it didn't really have what, maybe some competitors had at the time. Now, fortunately, this thing did have the PS3 controller associated with it. Thankfully, they didn't change the control at all. And that's something that I really do like. I really do like the PS3 controller. And I think the PS4 controller obviously is just kind of an addition to it. But that's still a really, really cool thing. Some people prefer the 360 controller. I personally kind of do like the PlayStation controllers, but I'm so split in the middle, I honestly don't care. Either or is perfectly fine for me. Now, obviously, this wouldn't be a Sony or even a gaming console at all if it didn't have some sort of games to play with it. And this thing can play all those PlayStation 3 games, which is awesome. There are so many games out for this thing. But like I've always said, it would have been really, really cool if this thing could have been supported with the PlayStation 2 lineup and the PlayStation 1 lineup. It is what it is, though. We can't go back in time and fix it. But this thing with the PlayStation 3 lineup has a ton of amazing games. You have those Grand Theft Autos, you have those Crash Bandicoots, whatever you want to play with it is going to be perfectly fine. And there's even a lot of PS4 games, because this was at the end of its kind of lineup where PS3 games were still being produced slowly before the PS4 games were starting to be produced. And there's a lot of those like mixture titles where the PS3 and PS4 games were kind of being released at the same time before they, cut out the PS3 and started only producing PS4 games. So there's still a lot of games at that back end that really kind of, are playable on this thing. You have so many games for this thing, Call of Duties, all that. And for sure, at the end of the day, the gaming library of this gaming console is for sure one of the top things for it. It's not like this thing didn't get any games at all. But what I'm saying is that if you went to this one from the original PS3, you will be kind of, cutting yourself short with some of the game titles you'll be able to play. But at the end of the day, for sure, this console had a lot going for it. You had not only the gaming console and the gaming library of it, but you also had the PlayStation Network where you could go and, play games online. You could go to the PlayStation Store and download games that way, put them on your hard drive or put them on an external hard drive, whatever you wanted to do. And there were a lot of other like funny kind of things going for it that were kind of, I would say, gimmicky features at the end of the day, but you still had a lot of things going for it at the end of the day. And how the PlayStation 3 Super Slim holds up in 2020, I think it's kind of like the last hope in a way. Because for sure it didn't really sell as many as the original PS3 or I think even the PS3 Slim, but this thing still kind of holds on in terms of custom firmware and all those things. I think people are still able to modify this specific console, which is really cool. So you can go and, install a bunch of different tweaks that way, which I'm not condoning and I'm not going against it, but if I had a PS3 Super Slim and if I was using it, I own this PS3 Super Slim, but if I were to use it every single day, I think I would probably end up modifying it at the end of the day. So I think that really pretty much covers up this review. If you have the Super Slim, I would say go for it, keep it. There's really no reason to go and update to another obviously no, there's many reasons to update to a newer console. Getting a PS4 or PS4 Slim would be really cool. Obviously the PlayStation 5 is coming out later this year, so I guess we'll see what happens eventually when that comes out. But I think that pretty much covers it. If you want to purchase a PS4 or PS4 Slim, I'll leave the cheapest one I find on Amazon. I'll link it down below so you guys can get it from there and help support the channel at the same time. But that is pretty much it. If you guys have any other questions or anything, leave it down in the comment section as well. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. Every single subscriber that we get really does count, so it means so much if you guys could hit that. Also check out the other links down in the description as well. My Twitter, my Instagram, my second channel. All those links are linked down below. I'd really appreciate if you guys could check it out. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.